this is where we're mixing personal, professional experience. What is at the heart of most the principles, the doctrines behind conversion therapies or aversion therapies or whatever we're going to call them? Where do they get the leverage, basically? What is at the heart?
Like me, and I think for others, and for my own research, is that these are very isolated individuals who are very afraid to talk about who they are. And so for the very first moment, when you come into a conversion therapist's office, you can talk about being homosexual and Mormon. And so for the first time, it's validated, it's supported, it's understood.
Acknowledge that it exists.
Yes.
Okay.
So there's this a validation after years of shame is healing. It feels good. And then also that because the therapy thinks like you do typically, because it also says that homosexuality is wrong, and we really want to help you with your goal of getting rid of that piece of you and helping you to be heterosexual. There's a sense of companionship or collusion. But a positive sense of I'm with you. No one else is going to help you, but I'm going to help you. So
I'll help you support your goals.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think there is a sense of someone cares, and someone thinks like me. Which again, if you're the sense of isolation that you think you're the only one, and then someone else validates who you are, and then if you put it into support groups or therapy groups or communities where others think exactly like you, it removes some of that shame. It's a sense of normalization, which is very healing for sexual minorities, especially religious sexual minorities. And then it ties into that piece of with God everything is possible, repentance. It brings in the idea of Satan. So it takes away the instead of you being a homosexual, it says that Satan is tempting you with homosexuality. So instead of seeing yourself as this abomination or this disgusting faggot, you actually start saying, I'm a heterosexual who is tempted by Satan.
Interesting.
So
takes it out of you. In some ways that can feel good, I'm sure, right? Because we're removing this...
Yeah, externalizing it.
This heavy, awful weight and guilt you've carried and you place it out here.
Yeah, Satan is tempting me. And Satan tempts everybody else, so I'm just like everybody else. I'm just like a heterosexual. I have emotional same-sex needs. But my parents treated me poorly, or I was abused, or my peers abused me. They're the reasons why I'm this way. So it does shift the burden of shame to something else.
And causality and origin as well, right?
Yes.
If that's I'm understanding that.
Exactly.
It's the influence of Satan in the world in general, and maybe on me at times as well, tempting me, but then the causality, the origin of what I feel are my inborn, but what I feel are my inborn tendencies are because of these outside influences that emasculated me at some point, or
taught me the wrong thing, or exactly, and so then it allows some sort of engagement. Again, like myself, I think other gay Mormons have they're very anxious. Have this drive that they're can-doers. You know, we're busy little bees here in Utah, and so the sense of if I try hard enough again and work against stop the behaviors, if I pray hard enough, if I resist, and so it does. So the framing of it is actually. It's hard to say if it's beneficial, but it's powerful.
It's a big relief.
It's effective.
Short term, maybe, but a big relief.
Well, that's the problem.
I guess I'm leaving.
Yeah, exactly, because it works for a while. So again, they can externalize it. I'm not that, and as long as I stay away from places that tempt me, then I won't be feeling those feelings.
Yeah. And who can blame somebody for wanting, when finding that for at least however long it lasts? Sort of being able to, in a sense, breathe a sigh of relief and say, the burden has shifted and it's a new focus, and I'm sure there's got to be a honeymoon phase there.
That's actually one researcher, a research team, Shidlow and Schroeder, called it the honeymoon phase. Actually, where there's a sense of being cared for, of loving others, of actually relating to people on a more real basis. There's an added hope that one can change. And you're getting these messages of other people who have changed. You see people in heterosexual relationships, the therapists, the religious leaders, others are saying that you can change.
Right.
So there's this added sense of support and validation that you never had ever.
Yeah.
And then again, the reframe that I'm not attracted to you, I'm just admiring you, or I'm admiring your traits. And so it's a framing of, I can feel these feelings, but they just mean that that I'm trying to be more like you.
Right.
And so it helps them to be more masculine or be more feminine if they're women.
Right.
And so they start, and I think it's another thing is I think part of this is a gender feeling or gender wounds of being a sissy and feeling that that's shameful, or being a tomboy and feeling bad about that. And so what these interventions do is, I'll help you be a real man.
Yeah.
And so this idea of having a heterosexual mentor to help you transition into masculinity, or the program Journey into Manhood.
Right.
So if you feel like a sissy...
I'm going to go and hang out there for a while. But go ahead.
But if you feel like a sissy boy and you feel really bad and deficient in who you are, and that it ties to your self-concept, and then you have these individuals wanting to teach you football or basketball or sports, or how to get along with the club of man, and also with women, how to be more with women. It takes away the sense of being the only one, or lost and alone.
And do these groups, and just on that note, do they sort of teach that that at some point in our lives that longing, that yearning to emulate and to be one of the guys and just be what appears to be a normal heterosexual, that we've sort of sexualized that emulation at some point?
Oh, that's the theory, that all of us in this world are heterosexuals, and we all have same-sex emotional needs. But those of us in this world who have sex or desire to have sex with the same sex have sexualized those needs because of, again, mom was too close, or mom was too distant, or father was too close or too distant. There was some abuse going on, or there was some gender identity deficit. Again, the peer abuse. And so there's a lot of fishing that goes on of, let's figure out what caused you to feel this way. And so there's a fishing expedition of, that's the reason why you're gay. And again, if you're really trying to figure out why you're gay, which gay Mormons, I think, tend to try to figure it out mentally, and they live in their heads, and have someone say, well, that's why you're gay. And you go, oh yeah, my father was distant. That makes sense. And so that sense of that makes sense to me is relieving. So you can stop trying to figure it out. It gives you a target to improve your relationship with men, or to improve your relationship with same-sex others. Stop objectifying them.
Which is not a bad thing.
Oh, it's just very healing, actually. But it doesn't make one into a heterosexual. You may look like a heterosexual. You may walk like a heterosexual and quack like a heterosexual, but you're not a heterosexual, in a sense, that idea of looking like a duck. But that facade and the groupthink mentality that starts happening is, you can't let it out. You can't start saying, I really desire to be with someone of the same sex. You can't say, I enjoyed having sex, or I think what does happen is a sense of a lot of confession going on, and then a lot of people saying, well, that's okay, that's part of the process. So it becomes very obsessive compulsive. So it becomes more of a confession and then a relief, confession, relief.
Confession precipitated by a mistake or something, right?
Right.
Or acting out.
Yep. The repentance cycle is all about, you binge, you feel bad, and then you purge, and then you abstain. But because in that whole process, there's no sense of self-exploration, because you're in a shameful place, one can never really say, well, why did I do this? It's more of, why did I do this?
Exactly.
So it's more of a judgment and trying to control it, and a controlling aspect of it. So in that repentance cycle, or binge purge cycle, or confession, again, repentance, there's no exploration, and then therefore there's no understanding, and therefore there's no ability to change the cycle.
But what if one would say, well, but there is exploration and that needs to be repented of? And so are you saying there's no exploration sort of with an open-ended sort of, or holding space for a non-judgmental exploration?
Yeah. Exploration tends to be about this, the biases or the judgments of this is wrong, this is bad, this is what you should not be doing.
Right.
And so that does not allow a sense of going out and seeing what one likes. Heterosexuals have a chance to do this definitely in high school.
Sure.
You can date who you want to date. But sexual minorities, we tend to fall in love with people that we can't date in high school, and we date those that we cannot fall in love with. And so there's no chance to figure out, well, what do I need in a relationship? But because, again, this idea of almost like a beach ball, the analogy that I've heard is that the beach ball, if you try to suppress it, it will pop back up. And so sexuality gets very addictive, gets very reactive, it gets very out of control. And so the person tries to control it again, because that's when they try to control it through shaming themselves or hating themselves or avoidance. But because they can't control it, it pops back up, but they blame themselves for it rather than blaming the agenda. Actually, that the solution becomes part of the problem. The solution, trying to get rid of something, you can't get rid of it. But if you're not allowed to explore those aspects, free of bias or understanding the bias, then there's no way to do this work of integration that we're talking about.
I've often, sort of empathize with myself, but empathize with others. Particularly, an easy example for me is at BYU, for example, where it's sort of the restrictions on behavior, are more heightened because your student status and possible future life status.
There are high stakes involved.
Yeah, high stakes.
Or becoming a god.
Exactly, yeah, let alone. Are contingent on you obeying and not engaging with your sexuality. And I just, sort of, again, thinking back in my experiences, but also empathizing with current BYU students where how do you even know what you're talking about in terms of your sexuality? How do you, what does it feel like? What does it look like? All the layers to it, because that engagement is so prohibited.
Right.
How do you even know what you're talking about? And it seems like that needs to be some sort of necessary component to healthy human development, even if somebody then determines later, as an extension of that engagement, decide not to sort of engage in behaviors of their sexuality, but at least they know what it feels, what it is, what's residing within them. So,
they use self-knowledge to make decisions.
Yeah.
I mean, I think heterosexuals, not all of them, but some people can. I think the idea or the agenda of overcoming your sexuality, overcoming temptations, it does kind of make sense for heterosexuals because they may have a chance to learn more about what they want, and they can commit to a spouse and turn to that spouse and get their needs met. But this idea of overcoming or repressing or controlling or hoping to overcome, again, does not allow the sense of exploration, reevaluation, commitment, a sense of knowledge, and then therefore decision making.
Exactly.
What happens is just an addictive cycle. And then blaming oneself, and then everyone else starts blaming you, is why can't you stop having sex, or looking at pornography, what's wrong with you, what's wrong with you, rather than saying, well, what's wrong with the process, what's wrong with the agenda. So again, shifting the blame someplace else.
Yeah.